Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Matt from the marketing team here at Databook. I'm joined by Jacob and Trevor, who I will introduce shortly. Today, we are going to teach you how to master meeting prep with DatabookGPT. We're going to talk about what DatabookGPT is, if you haven't already heard of it or used it. We're going to show you how to do meeting prep in a matter of minutes. I think a lot of sellers out there that are watching are thinking, oh, meeting prep, it takes hours and tons of research and analysis. Trevor here is going to walk you through several scenarios. He'll do it in a matter of minutes, and you'll walk away really understanding the top prompts to make it accelerated, make it easy, and land those deals faster. So really excited to show you that and walk you through it. We have 45 minutes. We're going to be moving through as briskly as possible, but also want to make sure we stop and answer any questions. We want to keep this thing interactive. So anybody who's watching right now, feel free to add yourself to the chat, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us what company role you are, and feel free to drop in questions along the way. After this call as well, we will be sending out a prompt guide. We'll be sending out the recording. We'll send out the slides. So you'll have a ton of resources to refer back to. That's enough for me. I'm going to introduce you to Trevor and Jacob. Trevor, why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. Trevor Gill, a senior client partner here at Databook. Been with the company about 4.5 years, going on 5 years now. It's been in enterprise sales for over 10 years. I've been lucky enough to work on several multi-million-dollar deals, very complex multi-line of business, multi-use case. So looking forward to demonstrating how I leverage DatabookGPT to prepare for several different types of meetings today. Thanks for joining.
Jacob.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm Jacob, a business value consultant at Databook within the product team. So my experiences are a little bit different, but still large majority in go-to-market, solutions consulting, as well as private equity. So today I'll be working with Trevor and Matt to really help us take a deep dive into DatabookGPT and demonstrating how efficient and impactful meeting prep can be by really kind of leveraging this new chat interface.
Fantastic. Well, let's go right into the agenda. Jacob, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So first off, we're going to start with high-level overview. What is DatabookGPT? How did we get here today over the past 6 years? And then we're going to lead into Trevor, walking us through how he maximizes his time in DatabookGPT by minimizing the amount of time it takes to conduct research for meeting prep, highlighting key areas that he would like to kind of dig into and prompts that he leverages. Lastly, we will touch into some of the resources, like how to get involved in our user community, prompt help, and all of the great stuff that Matt has in store for you today. So, introducing DatabookGPT. So DatabookGPT is a conversational agent that really delivers trusted insights to help your go-to-market teams plan, prepare, and really win your largest deals. Now, with DatabookGPT, sellers like yourselves can trust that the information that you get in each conversation is kind of grounded in verifiable facts. So that when you're building these account strategies, using the information in executive meetings, the facts that you're getting, you know you're hitting the mark every single time with accuracy. And so over the last six years, we've been really working hard to serve up proactive recommendations to the world's really largest enterprises. Now, I guess the question really becomes, how did we really do that? Well, we started with a web app that all of you know and love, the DatabookGPT web app, Databook web app. And then we really kind of pivoted towards how we can simplify your prep time and provide slide decks, POV decks, email templates as silver bullets to help you win your deal. But ultimately, that wasn't enough. Evolving from the Databook platform really itself, we bundled and improved our best features to really bring us to the chat interface, DatabookGPT. And now, even just through a conversation, DatabookGPT can provide you with really accurate, trusted, and personalized account intelligence. That's not only faster, smarter, and to the point compared to if you were to do all this research by yourself. Even now, we're constantly improving, developing new features that can help you in your sales processes, whether that's integrating with Teams, Slack, Salesforce. We really want to help you execute at what you really do best. Matt, is there anything that you think that I shot or anything that you think I should continue to add?
No, Jacob, I think you hit it all the nail on the head, and I think we're really ready to talk about our scenarios today. So, Trevor, why don't you walk through what you're going to demo today?
Of course. I'm going to play the role of a strategic account manager that sells intelligent automation solutions. So a fairly wide array of use cases and solutions across the intelligent automation space. I'm going to be targeting Dollar General, the discount retailer, as my target account. I'm going to walk through these 3 scenarios laid out here, treating them as a net new prospect. First time getting into the account, I'll be meeting with their SVP of supply chain operations, guy by the name of Roderick. How do I get a sense of what's happening at the account? What do they do? What's going on in the industry? Next, it'll be with Dollar General, but looking through the lens of trying to get to new lines of business. So we've landed with the operations group. Now we're trying to go get wider and get higher in the account. And so how do we go prepare for a meeting with their new CMO? And then lastly is with the executive decision maker. How do we tie all the work streams together and go put together a true executive point of view, talk about our value proposition at the highest levels of the company, and how do we leverage DatabookGPT to go prepare for that meeting? Cool. Awesome. I want to very quickly just talk about this space for a second. Obviously, generative AI chatbots being the big thing at the moment. I think we've all used some of the big name, language models out there, whether it's any of the models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, using Perplexity. They're all phenomenal. I think the one key trend that I've been hearing over and over, even in just the last couple of weeks, is the use of agents or agentic workflows. And this is going to be the big focus here over the next several months and even over the next few years, is building on top of these phenomenal language models with really role-specific, function-specific, line of business-specific agents. And so DatabookGPT was created as the best enterprise sales agent in the market today. Currently, it's built for a strategic account manager. So that's the role that the DatabookGPT sales agent is playing. We can further customize that for other roles across the business. So we want to leverage an agent for customer success or for sales development. Today, and as we'll go through DatabookGPT, it's pointed at a few different data sets. So one is our proprietary licensed and curated data, which I think most of you are familiar with through the use of our core platform. And the other is your solutions. So all of your case studies, use cases, and solutions have already been loaded into Databook, and DatabookGPT will be analyzing those to figure out talk tracks, emails, etc. Today, there are 3 main modules. We want to target an account. Is this the right account for me? Let's put a plan in place to go attack the account. And then, as we'll focus on today, let's prepare for the meeting. There's the ability to go build out additional modules for other activities that go-to-market teams are performing on a day-to-day basis. Another big differentiator I wanted to call out is guardrails. I'm happy to share some examples, but I've asked questions in the past on other public LMs around, give me the company strategy. What is their go-to-market strategy? What are their challenges? And the responses look great. The formatting has been awesome. And then I go through the sources where available, and some of them can be from several years ago in different regions across different lines of business that I'm not targeting. And so having the guardrails up today, where DatabookGPT is not going out across the public web, but staying within the data sets that we've validated, verified, to me, I'm able to have that trust and accuracy that what I'm putting in front of the customers is actually verifiable. Cool. And we go to the next slide. Just a very quick preview. Probably what I'm most excited about is the ability to personalize your own workflows. So today we'll go through, and when we ask a question, help me prepare for an executive meeting, we've built on the back end that prompt or that workflow. So first we're going to go look at an account overview, go analyze all the company's IR content to get a sense of what do they do, what is their key business segment, who are they selling to. We'll look at technographics, what do they own today, where's the white space, what are their strategic priorities. So this is something we've been curating for years now, based on what the company releases publicly. The ability then to go customize, well, when I ask for an executive briefing, this is what my team should actually be looking at. We want to pull in opportunity level data from CRM. We actually want to go pull in a quote. So the ability to actually have access on the back end and build that perfect workflow. So when your teams are asking a question or a prompt, DatabookGPT is going and analyzing the exact type of insights that you want and then surfacing it in the format that makes the most sense for you. So look out for that. And I'm very excited.
Trevor, I want to just pause for a second. We got this great question before we move forward from Greg Nishihira of Anaplan. Can you please define agentic and agentic workflows?
Yeah, maybe Jacob, I don't know if that is something you'd prefer. I'm happy to talk through it in layman's terms.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor, I think you could probably speak a little bit to that. I think on the product side, we're currently developing kind of the workflows to really help you customize how you go about navigating DatabookGPT, but it's currently work in progress. So, Trevor.
Yeah, I'll choose an example. So, a customer of ours in the fintech space, we were talking through different use cases. They're looking to build out their AI strategy, and initially they're trying to figure out which language model or which platform they're going to be building on top of. And so they're looking at GPT-4, looking at Claude, Sonnet 3.5, et cetera, essentially where are they going to orchestrate. And they're looking at building agents, so building agentic workflows. They want to build a specific agent for sales. So help me go build an account plan. Let's go put talk track and messaging together. They're going to build a separate agent, so essentially a separate application on top of their orchestrator that's going to go look at customer support. So when a customer support ticket comes in, we want to go actually perform a different function or go look at different data sets. So we're going to look at what is the previous customer support, how many 7-1 tickets are outstanding. They also want to go look into CRM. How big of a customer is this? Is this a tier 1 account? Have they already paid for support? And so rather than trying to use prompts and building different workflows on the back end where we use one agent, so one chatbot to go do a ton of different functions across the company, we're going to build separate chatbots or separate agents that are all really specialized to perform various functions, if that makes sense.
Fantastic.
Does that answer your question, Greg?
We can definitely move on. And Greg, if you have any follow-ups, definitely let us know. And we can also follow up via email with any follow-up questions. But Trevor, let's talk about how you get to DatabookGPT. Why don't you show us around?
Great. Yeah, I'll go into the platform, which I imagine most of you are familiar with. Here I'm looking at Dollar General highlights page. I'll go through this in a second. On the left here is a new icon for DatabookGPT. You click on this, it'll take you directly to the chat interface where you can use the same login credentials, or you can go to chat.databook.com and use your same login credentials on the platform. Great. Let's dive in here. Looking at Dollar General, it's a store I've shopped at in the past. I was not super familiar with their business, how they're performing, what they do. Very quickly was able to get a pretty good understanding of kind of the headwinds and tailwinds. What are they facing as a business? Where are they investing? Some of the new leadership changes. And I'll walk through how I did that and how I would go about preparing for a meeting with a couple of different line of business leaders. I'll start in DatabookGPT and then we'll go into the platform. So this scenario is my first time meeting with a customer, meeting with a gentleman named Roderick West. He's the SVP of Supply Chain Operations. I'll show you where I go download his briefing document. So I have 10 minutes before the top of the hour, along with coming in here to DatabookGPT, I've got an automated one-pager that I can share with my leadership team. I first want to understand the industry. Discount retail's, what I've learned is in a pretty niche space, very different than the overall retail landscape. And so I've just asked, give me the key trends in the discount retail industry. Give me a bit of an overview. What are the types of companies within the industry? More important to me is what are the priorities for companies in this industry? So we analyzed all of the top companies within a particular sector or segment. We then look at the C-suite priorities. What are the top board level initiatives that these companies have communicated to Wall Street or externally? And then we look at the most common strategic priorities. And so you'll see things like cost efficiency. Because competitive pricing is the name of the game in discount realty, you've got to be able to reduce your operating cost. Supply chain optimization, very similar focus here is how do we reduce the cost that we're spending on our supply chain so we can further discount our products and obviously attract net new customers. Digital transformation, I think, is the big one we're going to see a lot today. Enhancing an online presence, driving more e-commerce capabilities, improving the client experience, which ties into the last one. Financials, more around headwinds, tailwinds. The one thing I wanted to call out here is the thought leadership. One thing I've always struggled with is finding the right piece of thought leadership to either embed into my presentation to share with the customer as a takeaway. And Databook's always done a really good job of surfacing the right thought leadership at the right time for me. And now in DatabookGPT, it's it's even more timely. And so understanding customer behaviors in this space, consumables versus non-consumables. So, a bag of chips versus, I don't know, a hairdryer, for example. We're starting to see a much bigger trend towards consumables and people pulling away from the non-consumables. And as we'll see in a moment, for Dollar General, that's not a good thing. Their margins are much higher on non-consumables. Then next I went in, okay, great. Now I want to understand for Dollar General specifically, what are their key business challenges? It sounds like such a high level question. For me, this has been a really challenging thing to pinpoint for any customer that I work with without going in and doing discovery and digging deep with each of their teams. How do I arrive with a point of view on their key challenges from an outside in perspective? And here it gets me to that answer instantly. The first one is inventory management and shrinkage. As I went through this prior to the webinar here, I've realized shrinkage is a massive problem for Dollar General. Shrinkage meaning from the time a product is manufactured to the time that it's sold, how much of that is lost, where they're not able to actually monetize and drive revenue. Could be from theft, it could be from spoilage, it could be from breakage along the way. This has been a really big problem for Dollar General. And so they've announced a ton of initiatives to improve their shrinkage, improve their inventory management, and drive a much more efficient supply chain. And so for me, as a seller in the intelligent automation space, like this is my focus, especially for my meeting with Roderick. And we'll go through kind of how do we build a talk track for that in a second. We'll see a description. This is where I started to learn a little bit about this challenge. What are the impacted areas? Obviously, what is the impact overall for their business? It's going to reduce profitability, increase their operational costs, which is the opposite of what they're looking to do. It's going to damage employee morale because they're getting pressured to keep inventory on the shelves, and obviously reduce shrinkage, and then customer satisfaction as they have stockouts. It's going to make people obviously turn to other discount retailers. So I'll just go through one as an example today, and we'll start to build our talk track around that. Matt, let me know if there's any questions as we go through this. There's a few more prompts here before we turn over to the second scenario, but feel free to stop me anytime.
Keep on going. You're doing awesome.
Cool. I want to get a sense for their financial outlook. We start to see they have some challenges that align with my solutions, my use cases, but do they have a financial case for change? Is there a reason for the company to make a substantial investment to change the way that they're doing business or in a particular area of their business? And we can see here, this is my first meeting, and so we'll iterate on this moving forward. But as of now, revenue growth has been okay. It's considered an area for improvements below expectations, but overall their company revenue is still growing, at least it was at this point. Profitability has been a pretty strong area for the business from an EBITDA margin perspective. Gross margin is also pretty strong relative to peers. Their company's really struggling with back office efficiency. Back office or SG&A as a percentage of revenue is an urgent priority for management. They're one of the worst performing companies, and they have been historically across their entire peer set. Earnings transcripts, we'll dive into this in the next scenario where we get a full summary of the recent earnings transcript. But here, what I thought was really interesting, two things. One, same-store sales growth has been a big struggle for the company. At this point, quarter over quarter, although revenue was growing, total net sales grew. Same-store sales growth grew at a much smaller rate. And so the company continues to talk about how do they improve revenue per store or same-store sales growth. Also, from their new CEO, they mentioned a back-to-basics strategy to enhance supply chain efficiency and customer experience. Because I'm going to meet with the SVP of supply chain, anytime I see a C-level executive talking about a named program and named initiative, that's something I want to double click on. And so I then asked a follow-up question. Well, tell me about that back to basic strategy, especially because it's aligned to supply chain, which is where I'm building my narrative for the meeting with Roderick. And we'll see there's three main focus areas for this back to basic strategy, which is a top-down executive level roadmap for the company. Number one aligns with our initial talk track, reducing overstock, organizing stores. They want to tackle overstock, and they're talking a lot about how do they improve the organization layout of stores, obviously to attract customers to higher margin items. They want to improve customer experience. This will be really the foundation for our pitch to the CMO in the next scenario. And then operational efficiency, investing in store labor. They have a huge turnover problem, inventory management, obviously to address those challenges we talked about before, shrink, incentive compensation, And so overall, this back to basic strategy is one that I want to really emphasize as I'm going higher and wider in the organization. I think my use cases, my solutions tie in very well to all three of these. So continuing to iterate and build upon what we know about the business. Matt, I'll go through the next two pretty quickly here. I know we've got to get through a few more. Really, the goal of today is to share what are my favorite prompts, what are the ones that are surfacing the best results the quickest for me as I'm going to prepare for different types of meetings. So after the call, we'll share a list of all of these prompts, and obviously you can go play around with them and use them for your accounts. Then obviously the real bread and butter here, what sales plays are going to resonate with their supply chain and operational challenges. In the next version or in the next meeting, we'll ask for sales plays for a specific executive. Here, I wanted to align them to those challenges. So there's a couple that I think resonate very well. Process automation. I think this is the big differentiator between going and asking a chat GPT or leveraging Anthropic. These are specific to me. This is in my language. These are the use cases that I can position today. I have case studies built around these use cases. They're specific to the industry, and we understand how they're going to impact this customer's business. So very quickly can have a follow-on business case. Process automation, using AI and robotics to improve speed, business processes, optimize their operations. Obviously, it's a huge challenge for their company. They have a high-level strategic priority, which we'll see in a moment, around positioning themselves as a low-cost operator, which means they have to keep their operational costs low if they want to continue to offer the lowest cost for their products to customers. And then we'll see some of the impact. What is the financial impact, operational impact, and then what is the qualitative impact here at the bottom, which for me, this is the connecting of the dots, or the connective tissue, that on the core platform, the onus was on me as the user to connect the dots here from the company's priorities to my use case to the impact, both financial and qualitative. So to have the dots connected for me and then surfaced up as essentially a sales play with the talk track and the impact, I think that's what's been the most exciting for me as a DatabookGPT user. Cool. And then last one is discovery questions. This has been pretty surprising to me. The accuracy, the quality, and the depth of some of the discovery questions that have surfaced to me, they're better than questions that I would have come up with on my own, which is really how the kind of barometer test that I'm using with a chatbot like DatabookGPT. Can I do this on my own? Is this more of a time savings value to me, or is there an overall quality impact? And here, being able to surface discovery questions that are poignant, directly tied to the person that I'm meeting with and their challenges, that's huge. I think this is something we all struggle with, is how do I come up with the questions ahead of time so I'm ready to sound smart, to be a strategic advisor, to really open the customer up to talk about pain points that I can then attach my investment summary to. So we'll just look at a couple with shrinkage. What are the actions you're taking to reduce shrinkage? How are they impacting your results? They've talked about self-checkout strategies as a way to improve shrinkage. We want to understand, how are those adjustments impacting the business? Are they working? Asking, what are the strategies they're implementing to enhance their distribution and transportation efficiencies? How are you measuring success, as a follow-on question? So, at a high level, wanted to highlight these. We'll show some other discovery questions in a minute, but Matt, maybe we'll pause there, and if there's any questions, we're happy to field them, and whenever you're ready, we can go into the next scenario.
Yeah, in the interest of time, we got a great question from Carlos. Carlos, we will definitely follow up with you on your question there. So thank you for asking that. I'll just post it here so everybody can see it. But in the interest of time, we'll definitely do an email follow-up. I think, Trevor, the other thing just to point out, everything was preloaded for the demo here, but what did that take you? A minute or so to load in the questions, get the responses, basically curate all of that valuable information and be prepared for your meeting. Probably a few minutes all in?
Yeah, I had some of these last night, and then a few just a couple minutes ago, which you'll see some of the most recent ones to come up with the prompts. These are prompts that I use pretty often. So yeah, I'd say probably 2 to 3 minutes.
Perfect. And then Jacob, anything to add before we head into the next demo? Anything to highlight from your end on the product side?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of all of the prompts that you're showing today, Trevor, I guess I wanted to ask you, typically, if you were to go through all of these different research on your own, even just through the Databook platform, how long would it take you?
Typically, to prepare for a meeting without Databook, I think that the caveat there is most people are not doing this type of research manually. I think all of us, myself included, I'm always looking through the company's 10K. I always read the transcripts. I'm always looking at industry thought leadership, but I think we just don't typically have time on a day-to-day basis to get that deep manually going through everything that's available publicly on an account, especially if we've already met with the customer, they already know our use cases and our products, and we're just trying to kind of push the deal along. We're going to continue to just dive in on things we've heard from the customer, follow up, speeds and feeds, discounting products. So to be able to always stay top of mind with the customer from a business lens, to understand what changes are happening across the business, like that to me is the value rather than just the time savings, because I think that a lot of sellers are not actually spending a ton of time doing this research because it's difficult. And so we're typically leading with product. And I think that's the biggest challenge.
We also got this question, Trevor or Jacob, if you don't mind addressing it, just how does DatabookGPT work for private companies?
It's a great question. We don't have time to get as deep as I'd like into the answer. That's a two-part response. Number one, there's a surprisingly large number of private companies. We can look at Ace Hardware if we have time at the end, that report financials on some level. Typically, they're reporting on an annual basis rather than quarterly, as with a public company. And it really depends on the company how granular the financial reporting is. I bring up Ace Hardware just because their financials are really granular. It's a private company, but you can get a very good understanding for how the company's performing. They also release external strategic updates. This is our strategy moving forward. They've got a news flash on this is the direction, this is the challenges, here's where we're going as a company. So very similar to what you'd see with a public company, but they're not required and they don't do it as regularly. I think there's it could be wrong, I think about 13,000 private companies globally that we have financial data on in some capacity. A lot of those are based in EMEA, but so that's one. Obviously, we would handle that as we do with any public company, like you see here. For private companies where we don't have access to their financial data or qualitative strategic roadmap, we use a peer proxy or a public peer proxy. So our team will curate a list of typically 7 to 10 public companies that are most closely aligned with that private company based on the size, employee count, estimated revenue, geography. So what are the geographies that they sell and operate in? Obviously competitive alignment, but also just the type of business, how are they structured? And then based off those 7 to 10 most closely aligned peers, competitors, we'll use a public proxy or across that group. So what are the key trends? If 7 of the 10 companies are all facing a gross margin challenge because there's specific headwinds in the industry, let's leverage that as an assumption and go validate that with the customer. And so, it's based off that. We'll look at trends, commonalities. We'll bring in the industry analysis. It's hard to go get a meeting with private companies because it's difficult to show up with a point of view. But so far, this is the best solution that I've seen is leveraging that proxy peer group. And honestly, I think Databook can be sometimes more valuable for private companies where we have no information, because there's not a lot of people showing up with an industry benchmark study of this is what's happening across your 10 biggest competitors, and here's where we think you might fit into that. So we've gotten some really good feedback when our customers have put that in front of their target accounts.
And thank you for Tim for jumping in on the thread with this follow-up comment. I just put it on the screen. But Trevor, let's go right into the next section of demos. And thank you for everybody for the questions. Keep them coming.
Cool. Awesome. One thing that I forgot to go to before, but it'll take 1 second here, is that prior meeting was with Roderick West. I was actually wrong. He's the EVP of Global Supply Chain. But just to give you a quick highlight of how you get there, download the executive briefing document specific to Roderick. It'll get sent to your inbox in 20-30 seconds or so. And I'll just give you a quick flash on what this looks like. I'm always asked for a briefing document prior to a meeting. If I bring on our CEO into a meeting, he obviously expects a full briefing on the account, having a really consistent format that isn't just from CRM. Hey, this is who we know, this is what they own, but this is what's happening in the industry. This is how you sound like you really understand their business. This is what's happening across their peer group. To me, this has been a really important asset for preparing for meetings. All right, we'll go into the next one. So we've met with Roderick. He loves us. maybe we've landed with his team. We're supporting them to improve shrinkage and operational efficiency, and now we want to go align with some of their other strategic priorities around improving the customer experience, driving more foot traffic in the store, and increasing transaction size or basket size at a customer level. So, it's 2 months later, 6 months later, whatever it may be. First thing I always do is ask for an update. Give me an update since my last meeting, or give me an update since the last earnings call. I love this prompt, and I love the feedback or the response that I get. I can get a really quick snapshot of what's changed in the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And oftentimes you're seeing really important changes that maybe you would have missed if you were trying to go look at it manually. And so you'll see financial performance. The company still remains strong at this point. Strategic priorities, obviously this aligns really well, this first one here, with our upcoming meeting with the CMO. They're focused on driving profitable sales. They obviously, as I said in the beginning, they want to increase customer traffic and increase the transaction amount. This is a huge challenge. The trend of customers obviously having a much larger percentage of their basket on consumables, which have much lower margins for Dollar General. They want to figure out initiatives where they can go drive the mix back to non-consumables, higher margin products. And then a link back here directly to where we pulled this strategic priority from. And you'll see it's from their quarterly report, August 2024. I read through this last evening as I was going through it. There's some unbelievable takeaways. If I'm going and getting a meeting with their SVP CMO, like, this is exactly what I need to know before going in. It's a really granular challenge, and the company's putting a lot of resources behind figuring out a solution to fix it. So it's that shift toward consumables. Really low margins is chips and candy, gum, very low margin. And it used to be a pretty even mix between consumables and non-consumables. It's accelerated rapidly, much more than they expected, towards consumables. It's a huge percentage of their overall sales today. They're rapidly trying to figure out, how do we shift consumers back to non-consumables through advertising, through discounting. And so they've done a lot of promotions, pricing optimization, which then in turn lowers the margins on those non-consumables. My value proposition is we can help you drive the mix back to non-consumables without having to lower your pricing or do additional promotions and incentives. And that's by better understanding your customers. So we'll talk about the use case there in a second. Recent developments, you'll see, very timely. Tony Rogers joined very recently as the SVP CMO. He's got a background at these companies. Leads me into my next question. Help me prepare for my meeting with Tony Rogers, CMO, SVP at Dollar General. Going to get a personal brief on him. So here's his title. Obviously, these are the responsibilities: development and execution of Dollar General's marketing, brand and media, their personalization strategies across all channels. This stuck out to me, including their digital properties and the DG Media Network. Don't know what that is, so I want to dive into that in a second. I've been on his background. He was a CMO at Sam's Club, at Walmart, at Signet Jewelers. That's very interesting to me. I want to understand, can we connect the dots with any other teams that we work with or executives we work with at these accounts? I want to go dive into his background a little bit more. Business strategy that aligns best, or what is the strategic priority that aligns, obviously, to this target. It's all around profitable sales growth. There are some other operating efficiency sales plays that might work here. He's also responsible for reducing shrinkage, pricing optimization. How do we keep the cost high or price high while still driving additional sales? Industry trends, and then some additional developments. Lastly, is discovery questions. Not going to dive into them. We looked at them on the previous one, but for the meeting brief here, we're going to get a pretty thorough understanding of his role, financial performance of the company, what priorities does he align to, and then discovery questions. Last thing, sorry, I'll call out here is, in the summary, it's going to tell me what use case is the most relevant. What should I be thinking about as I start to build my talk track? And improving offer acceptance aligns very well. It's going to help them drive more click-throughs or checkout for customers that are online, looking at different offers, looking at promotions. And then you'll see here, we can go dive into the strategic priority that we think this aligns very well with. I'll go through the next ones a little bit faster here. One thing I always do, especially if I've met with the company before and I'm trying to get a quick flash or an update on what's changed, what's happening. Are there new and named initiatives? Are there leadership changes? I want to get a summary of the most recent earnings call, but I want it to be relevant to me So I want you to summarize everything in the earnings call that I care about, that I can help me position my use cases that can help me target, this new CMO. And so you'll see here, there's actually a ton of changes since the last earnings call. A couple that I'll call out. Same store sales growth, still a challenge. Back to basic strategy. Obviously, we saw that their CFO noted a 20.6% decrease in operating profit, which is a massive negative impact for the company. And you can start to sense some concern with their executive team and in the market as a whole from a Wall Street perspective. Their CEO talked about being financially strained, leading to increased promotional activity, or their core customer base, is financially strained, economic downturn, and that's causing the company to have to go drive their prices down to keep people coming to the store. Ongoing financial pressures, their back to basic strategy, they're doubling down on. They've got to improve efficiencies and customer experience, and then you'll see that operating profit. We can go into the citations to the most recent earnings call where these summaries was pulled from. Last two, and then the third scenario we'll go through pretty quickly. But what use cases are relevant for this meeting with Tony rather than with Roderick, who's EVP of Supply Chain and Operations, Tony SVP and CMO? What should I position here? And you'll see the recommended use cases are obviously very different, and then how they align to the business are very different. They're tailored specifically to this buyer. Improved offer acceptance, follow the leads. These are both aligned really well to enhancing customer satisfaction, streamlining their operations, improving employee engagement as well. It's all about driving increase in sales, retaining customers, and then improve efficiency in the way that they handle their customer interactions. Cool. And last one, as I'm going into this meeting, I want to go position these use cases. First, I want to get an understanding for what marketing technology do they already use. And so we can ask this across any area of the business. We could have asked, what supply chain or operations technology does Dollar General use? And you'll see here for marketing, we get a list of essentially all of the subcategories, who is the vendor and what are the different products that they use. This is a new licensed data set that we've ingested into DatabookGPT just very recently, along with contact data. So exciting update there. Matt, we'll take a pause if there's any questions you want to surface before we go into the last scenario.
Yeah, we want you to catch your breath, Trevor. You're doing great. You're walking through a lot of stuff, and we've got about 7 minutes left, but we do want to pause. We got some questions. So I'm going to put, first we'll start with Tim. So Jacob, you want to handle this one about GPT pulling info from last meeting?
Yeah. So in terms of calendar or CRM information, our product team is working very hard to kind of get that within next little bit, where it's always on the roadmap. We appreciate your patience. It's definitely something we're currently rolling out. In terms of things that are actively being pushed forward, I know Trevor just showed how technographics is something that we were really focusing on to show what is data management products utilized by X, Y, and Z at your accounts or target companies. We've been working really hard to push that out, as well as integrating with sales intel to get you contact information regarding emails, as well as any kind of executive titles that are much more up to date. Additionally, things in the pipeline include, rolling out Copilot API plugins to kind of provide you with trusted Databook insights in existing tools that you have, whether that's Slack or Salesforce and et cetera. But I appreciate your patience on that.
Awesome. And then quickly, we got a comment from Gustavo. Do you want to just address that one too?
Sure. So Gustavo, we will follow up with you with the customer success team afterwards, just to kind of dig into the exact specifics of that particular inquiry. So we have no doubt that if that was something that our competitors could bring up, that is something that we can definitely push forward as well. So just definitely hang on for a second, but we'll follow up with you.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Steve, we had a question. Do you know how accurate the install base data is?
I don't have the perfect answer for that, but I would say about as accurate as any other technographic provider. I think we're starting to see, and we've heard this from most customers we work with, whether it's contact data, technographics, these are becoming pretty commoditized. Most companies are surfacing them in a pretty similar way. There's you guys take a random guess at 75, 80% accuracy rate. We're working with sales intel today. I'm happy to share a 1 or 2 page briefing document of how exactly they curate these. I know a lot of them come from job postings. Hey, we're looking to hire someone who has skills in Google Tag Manager, Google Ad Conversion, resumes, other partnership announcements, things like that. We've got a whole list of how they're surfaced and how they're then validated and verified. Thus far, I've seen them actually be pretty accurate and on point. But I've only been using this specific source for about a month or 2 now. So
yeah, thank you for that, Steve, and thank you for the comments, everybody. Trevor, take us home. We've got about 5 minutes left, so just want to make sure we get to the final demo. So last one.
Cool. Yeah, these are pretty quick. So decision maker, just to rewind, obviously we've got a work stream that we're currently pursuing, or a track we're pursuing with supply chain around operations, reducing shrinkage, improving inventory management. We've got a separate track that we're pursuing in the account with marketing, all around improving customer experience, customer service, improving in-store operations to drive, obviously, top-line growth. Now we want to tie it all together. We're going to go meet with economic buyer, decision maker, whoever it may be. We've got to now tie all of the different tracks or work streams together and build a single cohesive narrative or story where we can go get access to, obviously, significant funding for a really transformational partnership. Just a couple of the prompts that I really like to use at this point. What are the risks? Are there risks to my deal? I want to know it. I can align as well as you possibly can to the company's challenges, priorities. But if they announced last week that, the company's filing for bankruptcy, like that is obviously a very significant risk to the business. So I want to understand, are there any external or outside in risks that I should be aware of? And this may have changed very recently, just in the last few weeks. So I always like to ask this to stay up to date on, what are the key things I need to be thinking about? Financial performance, you'll see here, there's some challenges, but it doesn't highlight a particular risk for me. Operating challenges, store manager turnover. They've had other turnover at the executive level in the company. Economic factors, inflationary pressure, rising interest rates. I think this is a big one as the economic downturn continues, or if it starts to reverse course and go the other way. That's going to have a huge impact on whether or not they can fund a significant transaction. Whether or not interest rates go up or down is going to have an impact on their ability to make additional investments. So I think that one's really important to stay on top of. Market competition and then regulatory and compliance. So not a ton here that stands out to me as I should really be flagging this deal as significantly in risk based on external factors, but there's definitely some to keep an eye on. Investor sentiment. Does the company have money to spend? Are they in a financial position where they can make a multi-million-dollar investment to improve any area of the business? A couple interesting things here. One, I think it was in one of the previous responses. The company downgraded its forecast for the year pretty significantly, from I think 7 to maybe 4% growth rate. They're forecasting some really negative impact, or they're worsening their expectations for their investors on their operating margin, operating efficiency. Because of this, their share prices plunged by over 50% now over the last 12 months. And there's some pressure, could face pressure from activist investors because of this. So there's a ton of concern across their investor base and across, obviously, the industry that the company's heading in the wrong direction. That's really important to know as I'm going and meeting with the economic buyer. One, because it highlights potential risk for my deal. And two, they're in a pretty urgent space where they massively need to turn around some of these challenges. And so I need to be able to up-level my conversation, make sure I'm speaking at the right level. And you can't go into an account like this, in my opinion, with requesting a project that is going to cost $50K. Like, that's not going to drive the type of impact that they need. You've got to be able to support a really transformational partnership. And to do that, you've got to understand their business. Then overall, all of the use cases that I'm working on with their teams, like how do these align, and do they align with Dollar General's goals and initiatives as of today? And so here it'll get basically a full snapshot of across all of their strategic priorities, the company's challenges, profitable growth, capturing those opportunities, reducing their operating costs so they can continue to be positioned as the best low-cost operator. Do my use cases align here? What is the talk track, and how do I build a narrative, obviously, across all of these? So it'll highlight all of the use cases that we've been working on with the customer. What priorities do these align to? What is the impact that this is going to have? And then typically I'm going to take this and obviously put it into a slide formatting. And I'll show you where you can get one of those in a second. Last one here, executive comp. The executive that I'm meeting with, did they hit their target last year? What are their targets? What are they being compensated on? Is a really nifty insight that I've started to leverage more and more often, because we're very consistently seeing that CFOs, other economic buyers, other executives are prioritizing projects that align back to how they're compensated, which makes sense. Is it top line revenue growth? Is that the number one way that they're being measured and compensated for this year? And if so, they're going to prioritize investments that are going to impact top line rather than conserving operating costs. So they did not meet their targets last year. We got a pretty good understanding for what are the top areas where they're being measured. Number one is adjusted EBIT. So we've got to go, I think, build our talk track around profit margins. How do we go drive that profitable growth, reduce operating costs? So I think that's really the North Star with the business. And then last thing is I'll go back into the platform. And when I'm meeting at this level, I want to understand what their actual targets are. And then I'm going to build that into my presentation. So driving profitable growth, reducing operating costs or improving operating margin, that's the North Star. Well, what are their estimates? What are they trying to hit? We know that they're being measured on their EBIT or EBIT margin. Well, what is their target moving forward? We can look at their profitability forecast. So 2025 all the way through 2027, they're actually expected to perform very well from a profitability perspective, profit margin. Let's use this as a way to validate our deal. Wall Street expects you to hit this, an 8.5% EBITDA margin. And obviously, if they miss that number, their stock price is going to take another significant hit. And so just one example, I want to look at expectations and then obviously align my talk track to that as the North Star. And for anyone who doesn't know, here's where you download the point of view for the company, just right here on the main company profile. And that'll take you to the more in-depth presentation, which essentially goes through everything we just looked at in DatabookGPT and allows you to put it into a client-facing deck. So strategic priorities, these are the use cases across the different solutions that we're positioning with the account. This was fully automated. I haven't touched this as of yet, so it aligns really well to what we just saw there. Aligns back to how it impacts the business. What is the overlap with their priorities? What are the case studies that are going to resonate? Feel free to go in and download for your account. You'll see all of the industry analysis after the first appendix. Cool. Yeah, Matt, I think we'll probably stop there. We can dive into anything with the last minute or two that we have, but
yeah, well, I think JP sums it up when he said, this is great. So thank you so much, Trevor. Yes, we will be sending out these prompts. We'll be sending out an email tomorrow, which will have the recording. It'll have the slides. It'll have all of Trevor's prompt packs. So everybody can jump right in that have access to DatabookGPT. You'll also be prompted to join Databook Connect. This is our user community. Jacob had alluded to this earlier. This will have tons of prompt guides. It'll have all kinds of interactive features which can customize your experience using Databook or DatabookGPT. So plenty of resources in there, and it's always being updated. We also have another webinar coming up. It's more of like a roundtable. So this is something we invite everybody to join over at databook.com/events. We've got Scott Ingram, fantastic gentleman. He's the founder of the Sales Success Media platform, and his podcast, just phenomenal. He will be talking about becoming an A player in sales, all that he's learned, and bring your questions. This is going to be interactive, so he will share directly with you all. So we hope to see you there. And of course, if you are interested in a Databook demo, databook.com, that's the place to go. Request one. Our team will be in touch, and we will showcase all that we have to offer. Hopefully today was a really great lens and filter into DatabookGPT and the web app itself. So Trevor, Jacob, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here today, putting on a great show, so much information. Any final thoughts from you, Trevor?
No, thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it.
And then Jacob, any final thoughts as we part ways here?
I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you everybody. We will see you on the next one.